Does money buy happiness? Well, it just might. A survey just published points to the notion that money does continue to buy happiness, even for the affluent. Here to discuss is Bloomberg opinion columnist Justin Fox, who joins us live right here in New York City. Hey, Justin, it's great to have you back on the show. Thanks for joining us. You just wrote this article for Bloomberg Business Week on this. For years, my understanding has been basically when it comes to money buying happiness, it does to a certain extent, and that threshold is basically $75,000 for household income. But that's not necessarily the case, right?
Well, so there's a famous study from 10 years ago by famous psychologist Daniel Kahneman and economist Angus Deaton. And what they found is that if you just, and they were using Gallup polling data, and if you just ask people, hey, how satisfied are you with your life? That keeps going up with income with no real change as people get more affluent. But when Gallup asked people, how did you actually feel yesterday? When Kahneman and Deaton put together all the emotions, they basically came up with, it kept feeling better up till around 75,000 a year, which in current dollars is about 90,000. And then it went flat. So I mean, the issue here is how do you measure happiness? And what's kind of cool, this new study is it's a young psychologist, former software engineer who, when he was working on his doctorate at Harvard, designed an iPhone app that you sign up for and it pings you every, I signed up last week and it pings me about twice a day. And sorry, I'm having some lighting problems. The idea being that if you're having to respond really high to something, when something asks you, how do you feel right now? That's going to be you're going to be more honest, or at least it's going to be truer than when you're asked about the day before. And he's been doing this. This is based on 33,000 users, I think, more than 1.7 million responses. And it just, people's sense of how they're feeling right now kept improving well past $75,000.
That's so interesting to hear, because we sort of were under the understanding from this survey 10 years ago that you cited that it plateaus after $75,000 in household income, which, as you write in your story, is about $90,000 in today's dollars. Let's bring up that chart that shows a survey of well-being in the U.S. You were referring to this because this is the one that's in your piece. And it shows, Justin, that there's not necessarily this plateau anymore, right? We see here evaluative when it comes to life satisfaction, then experience through feelings, two different colors. Even when we get up to $400,000 a year, those two bars can continue to go up. So does it plateau, though, when people do earn in their household more than $600,000 or more than $400,000?
The problem is, I mean, he's got a reasonably affluent group of users on this app, but I can't imagine there are more than a few dozen people making more than $600,000 a year. So the fact that it tails off a little between 400 and 680 may not mean anything at all. I mean, the one thing that is interesting on there is the line is a lot steeper. Well, it's not a line in that chart, but the way it works is it's a lot steeper when you just ask people to evaluate their lives and how they're doing than when you ask people just, how are you doing at this moment? So clearly, there's still a difference between the two kinds of happiness, I guess, or the two ways of measuring it. But yeah, this one, at least with this group of users of this app, and it's a lot of people, but it's not necessarily representative of the population as a whole. People keep feeling better as they have more money, and it makes sense. A lot of it is just that it clears worries out of the way.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess that's what it is.
Let's just say I'm not that surprised by it. But I do wonder what type of implications it has, not just for policymakers, but the way that we feel about affluence and happiness and the important societal effect of that.
I mean, one thing that comes out of this is the increase is basically your happiness goes up commensurate with percentage increases in income. So you basically, we still, even though happiness keeps going up with income, you get a lot more bang for the buck when somebody who makes $20,000 a year gets an extra $1,000 than when someone who makes $200,000 a year gets an extra $1,000, which you probably don't need a survey to tell you. But when you think about it in policy terms, it's still interventions that increase the incomes of people lower in the income scale. It looks like increase overall societal happiness more, if that's the goal.
Is there an ideal salary that we can come to a conclusion from?
Oh, we should all make $400,000.
Okay, there we go. I like it. Bloomberg columnist
Yeah.
Justin Fox, thank you so much for your time. Great to see you this afternoon.